Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Mark here, and in today's video I'll walk you through how we wrapped up the base preparation for our house. With cold weather on the way, we needed a solid solution for our well, and here is what we came up with. With the formwork, chimney base and rebar mesh all in place, we had one final step to take before the concrete could be poured. Above the sewer system, I had to add an extra layer of rebar since the ground around and above the pipes hadn't been meshing compacted. To compensate for that, the plan was to place the rebar more frequently. I had ordered some extra rebars in advance, so that wasn't a problem. Overall, I think this setup will hold up well, and hopefully I'll never have to deal with it again. Fingers crossed there won't be any blockages or serious issues under the concrete. It wouldn't be nice to open it up with all these rebars in it. The mesh we had prepared earlier didn't cover the entire base, so we had to add some extra rebar in the center to ensure everything was properly connected. Unfortunately, my camera died at this point, so you will have to take my word for it. It's important to make sure the mesh section overlaps. Even though all the mesh was in place, I still had to tie it together in a few spots just to make sure it wouldn't shift during the concrete pour. I did the same along the sides, tying a mesh to the vertical rebar sticking out, and also lifted it about 2 cm to ensure the concrete could flow underneath. This was the final step before pouring the concrete. I was pretty happy to have completed most of it on my own or with my wife's help, but we knew the next phase would require some extra hands and expertise. I called my dad, and luckily he had some spare time the following week, so we quickly booked a couple of days with him. Our neighbor Richard also offered some help. He's a real handyman with years of experience, so I couldn't say no. The thing is, I still had plenty of time left this week, and I don't like sitting around doing nothing, especially when there is a project and lots of stuff to do. So I quickly figured it out what could be done just before the help arrived. In episode 5, I showed you how we set up our well, but that solution wouldn't survive the winter. When water freezes in the pipes, it expands, which can crack and damage them. And that's exactly what I wanted to avoid. So it was time to build a utility chamber, right underground, exactly where the pipes were. This project was born in my mind within just a few minutes, and after a quick calculation and some planning, all the materials were ordered for the very next day. Ordering materials that quickly doesn't always work out. Usually you have to wait days or even weeks. But that's when we found our new supplier, who's now our first place to call. He managed to bring everything what we needed for the next morning. The plan was pretty simple, just to build a small underground cellar to keep all the gear in one place, like the water filter and the pump to bring up the fresh water when it's needed. That same day I started digging, and I just kept digging and digging for the rest of the day. In total, I moved about a cubic meter of sand. Learning from my previous mistake, I took my time carefully dismantling the existing system to avoid any damage on the pipes. I'm glad to say, all the pipes made it through without any damage. About halfway through, I built a wooden frame the size of the hole just to help me keep track of its dimension and shape. At first, I wasn't exactly sure where I wanted the pipe, but I decided to place it at the back of the hole. This way, I had enough space at the front for connecting pumps, cleaning system, and have space for future maintenance. It took a lot of digging, and the deeper I went, the tougher it got. At one point, I had to lift the shovel over my head just to get the dirt out. I managed to reconnect the pipes to the manual pump, so I had a working water source. Once the hole was done, I made a small square frame and placed it around the pipe. This keeps the concrete from touching the pipe and leaves a gap around it. That way, any extra water can drain into the hole later on. The next day, I got all the tools ready around the hole, and right on time, our delivery arrived, a full pallet of blocks. First thing first, we prepared all the rebars and made the hole about 10 cm deeper along the sides. That's where the walls will sit, and the little extra strength never hurts. The blocks were the only materials we had to order, everything else we already had on hand. Pro tip: when you're building a house, always keep extra rebars, cement and sand around. You will end up needing them everywhere. We fired up the mixer and the concrete started flowing into the hole. Once we filled the edges with concrete, we placed 3 vertical rebars on each side, then laid down a sheet of 6 mm mesh across the bottom of the hole. Looking back, I probably wouldn't have poured concrete in the center of the hole. Why? Well, it would have saved time and materials, plus without the layer of concrete, more heat could rise from the ground, making the cellar warmer during winter. We took our time filling the hole, gently shaking the rebars to help the concrete flow around them and settle evenly. There was no need to rush. We knew the base needed at least a full day to cure before we could start building the walls. After wrapping up the work, we went for a relaxing walk with the kids, a quiet way to end a long productive day. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing and leaving a like. That's the best way to support us. We will be back in 2 weeks. Mark is out. Peace.